Hello, BookTube, and welcome to another weekly reading vlog. These are the books that I've been working on this week. So I'm going to do my best to keep this one short. I know I always say that, and then I know I always ramble on forever, but it's a bit late here at night. I'm short on sleep the past few days, and I just don't feel like I have the energy to talk about anything in depth. So we'll give kind of very brief summaries. For the month of October, I am prioritizing Dracula. I'm a slow reader, so I want to make sure I finish it before the end of the month. This week, I read from page 110 to page 240, so 130 pages. That's good. That's a good week for me. Yes, as we noted last week, and as somebody was kind enough to comment on the weekly reading vlog for last week and to confirm that it wasn't just me, this book can move very slow in spots. It's from 1897, so I guess attention spans and pacing have changed. It's also, I suspect, a victim of its own success, meaning that a lot of the things in this book that I'm sure were shocking or surprising or intriguing to its original audience are just assumed now, the vampire lore. So the section I read for this week was the long illness and then eventual death of Lucy. What was Lucy's last name again? Lucy... Mina Harker and Lucy Westrina. Lucy Westrina. And yeah, it just goes on and on and on, where she's sick, she's getting a little bit better, she's sick, she's getting a little bit better. Sometimes she gets better just because Count Dracula leaves her alone for a little bit. Sometimes she gets better because the other characters give her blood transfusions, which help to sustain her. But by the way, I'm fairly sure that almost all modern vampire lore comes from this book. I mean, I think there were vampire books before Dracula, but nobody really remembers them. This is the one that established all the vampire rules. That being said, some of the rules are a little bit different in this book than in modern vampire movies. If Dracula bites you on the neck, you don't automatically become a vampire. I think you have to die first, and then you become a vampire. So Lucy does not die immediately. She has a long, lingering illness, I guess, caused simply by the loss of blood, I guess. Where it just does go on and on and on. Again, getting worse, getting better, getting worse, getting better. There are all these strange things that are going on around her, which none of the other characters really can make sense of. There's a bat which flies outside the window, for example. And of course, as a modern reader, you're going like, okay, we all know it's Dracula. Can we just get on with it? But I guess the original audience didn't know that. But then, after Lucy dies, and then Van Helsing, who knows more than he lets on, throughout the entire novel, he knows more than he's telling the other characters. Sorry, where was I going with this? After she died, Van Helsing makes some sort of cryptic comments about how it's only the beginning. And then when there are children who are getting abducted by a strange lady in the night, Van Helsing makes a connection between her and Lucy. And then there's a scene where they go into the graveyard in the middle of the night to see Lucy now as a vampire preying on children. And those scenes and those dramatic moments are good. And they hold up even by today's standards. The meeting Lucy in the graveyard. part again. Um, so parts of this book I think really do hold up well. And I'm sure after you finish reading this book, it's those dramatic parts that you remember. But there also are a lot of slower parts through this. So I'm at the part now where they've killed the vampire Lucy, and they are plotting their attack on Count Dracula. There are scenes. There are scenes that are really good throughout this, but it's also interspersed with a lot of boring detail. All right, how am I doing on time? Not doing a good job of keeping this short, am I? All right. Well, the other two books here, I've not read a lot of, again, because I'm prioritizing Dracula for the month of October. Journey to the West, I read from page 210 to 2210 to 2232. So 22 pages. Finished up chapter 96. So I'm into chapter 97 now. I'm really getting, at long last, to the end of this book. This is volume 4 out of 4 volumes. And once I finish Dracula, I should prioritize just knocking this book out because I'm so close to being finished with it. In chapter 96 was a chapter in which not much happened. They were being hosted by a man who likes hosting monks. And they just kept getting hosted night after night after night, and they kept wanting to get away, but he kept insisting on hosting them until eventually they finally just got away. And that was pretty much the entire plot of chapter 96. Now, chapter 97 picks up where chapter 96 left off. After they've broken away from their host, bandits come in and kill their host and steal everything. And then they meet those bandits on the road, and they defeat the bandits, take back the gold and the treasures of their host, and are bringing it back to their host, but then they get accused of stealing it themselves by the local military. And that's the middle of chapter 97, which is as far as I've gotten for this week. Then continuing the Thomas Cromwell trilogy, The Mirror and the Light, I read this week from pages 112 to 142, so 30 pages from this. Largely about the reconciliation between Princess Mary, now called Lady Mary, and her father, King Henry VIII. The Lady Mary is the person who's going to go on to become known to history as Bloody Mary because of the repression of the Protestants and some of the reprisals she took against the Protestant reformers of the time of Henry VIII. But both when I was watching the Tudors TV show and when I was watching this book, they both made her out to be sympathetic. You know, this teenage girl or this young woman who's just caught up in this horrible situation about her parents getting divorced, she being disinherited from her father, and comes out largely a sympathetic figure. And Hilary Mantel portrays her as a very awkward and gangly figure. Of course, in the Tudors TV show, she was portrayed by a very pretty actress who came off as looking very suave and cool. But, you know, that's Hollywood for you, I guess. Anyways, in this section of the story, Lady Mary, she's no longer a princess because the marriage between her parents has been declared illegal, so it's been annulled. So she's Lady Mary. She's refusing to take the oath to swear obedience to her father as the supreme head of the church. And as such, her life is in danger because the king is refusing to budge on this. So Cromwell has to use all his powers of persuasion to get her to sign the oath so that to save her life. And in order to do that, he's got to try and get on board the people who are allies of Lady Mary, although they're using her. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, Cromwell in this book is portrayed as playing a little dangerous game of diplomacy because he's putting his neck out to help Lady Mary and her people, but they all hate him. And so his friends worry that he is putting his neck out to help people who aren't going to protect him, and he's also alienating his allies. And of course, we all know where this book is going to end, which is Thomas Cromwell having alienated everybody, getting his own head chopped off at the end of this book. So we'll see how that maybe plays out as the book goes on. I have the same comments I've been making all throughout this trilogy, which is I find the history interesting generally. But there are just so much descriptions and so many conversations which don't move the plot forward that I find this book requires a little bit of patience. But again, this book is supposedly more literary than most historical fiction. So you get what you expect, I guess, when you pick up a book like this. And then The Incredible Hulk. So in this collection, The Incredible Hulk has been banished to a Crossroads lands where he can't hurt anybody on Earth and can pick whichever world or universe he wants to go into. So it's a setup for a lot of interesting lands. Now the Hulk himself, this is at a period in the Hulk's history where he's just a pure brute. And the narration really drives this home. So yeah, where's the narration here? It continually talks about how the Hulk can't really think about anything. He can't process logical thoughts. He just has pure animal instinct. And it kind of makes me feel, well, why am I reading about him? Well, like, why is he the main character in this series? That's got to be so boring, right? Give me some sort of human character or human-like character I can identify with. But the various lands that he travels to in this series are kind of interesting. In one, he picks up a symbiotic parasite, which looks like a spinal cord, which attaches himself to Hulk's back. This is on a world where these symbiotic parasites just attach themselves to all the animals. And then after this world, Hulk goes into another world where there kind of is like a little fairy tale going on here. It almost kind of reminds me of the cartoons in the 1980s. There's there's elements in here of like the Smurfs or maybe Masters of the Universe or something like that. Some sort of science fiction element mixed in with a kind of a castle type element. There's this castle with these evil creatures, and there are these good green creatures who live in a paradise land protected by flowers. But when one of them leaves that paradise land, she gets captured by the evil creatures, and Hulk wants to save her, but Hulk also gets captured by them. And then I'm almost to the end of this section. Near the end of it, she realizes her power to summon plants and defend herself. I don't know, like all of these stories are, it's really too short to really get into this world in any bit of depth. I guess the limitations of the monthly comic book issues where you only have 24 pages to fool around with, and most of the story is taken up with big illustrations. But it's an interesting idea, interesting little taste of something interesting that they're trying to do here. So, how did I do? 15 minutes. That's on the short end for me. I can quite often ramble for 30 minutes if you've been following this channel. When I said I was going to try and keep things short, I thought maybe I would do it in 5 minutes, but that's not realistic for me, huh? All right, so here we are. And I will see you next week. Thank you, BookTube.